Rylan Corvain crouched on the edge of a broken walkway, his hands gripping cold metal beams. The microquake had left the station twisted, floors cracked like glass, and the recycled air tasted stale with dust. Nix, 7 wasn't kind to anyone. No adult could keep him safe here, and tonight, he had nothing, not even a place to sleep. The makeshift shelters were crushed. His stomach growled, but hunger was easy to ignore compared to the danger. The boy scanned the dim corridors, shadows stretching like fingers across twisted pipes and shattered panels. Every creak and hiss of the old station set his heart pounding. He had learned to move quickly, quietly, and carefully, but even he could not predict everything. A rogue scavenger gang had been roaming the sector last week, and rumors said they killed anyone who didn't have something valuable. Rylan didn't have anything, but fear had taught him that sometimes, staying alive required more than caution. It required courage. He inched forward, ducking beneath a hanging beam. His eyes caught a flicker of movement, a figure, immense and shimmering under the emergency lights. At first he thought it was another scavenger, but the shape moved differently with grace no human could match. Rylan froze. The dragon mechanoid, Zyra, was real. Stories said she could crush a man with one swipe, that her eyes could pierce the dark and see a person's intentions. Many colonists avoided her, but some whispered she could also be something else, something like a guardian, though no one alive had ever proven it. Rylan swallowed hard, his pulse racing. He had nothing to trade, nothing to bargain with. If Zyra attacked, there would be no escape. Yet some part of him stirred, an impossible hope. He stepped forward, voice trembling but steady. You're real, he said. I'm alone. I have nothing. Please, don't hurt me. The dragon mechanoid tilted her massive head, scales catching the dim light. Her glowing eyes studied him, calculating. Rylan's stomach twisted. Every story he had heard warned that no human survived a misstep near her. But she didn't move aggressively. Instead, she paused, silent as if considering him. I'm motherless, Rylan whispered, his voice breaking. I have no one. No home. He held out a small, trembling hand almost instinctively, almost as a prayer. Zyra's massive claw hovered in the air. Her glowing sensors blinked in what seemed like thought. A soft hum vibrated from her metal body. It was not a growl, not a threat, but something else. Hesitation. Understanding, maybe. And then, slowly, impossibly, she lowered her claw and touched his hand. The metal was warm, not cold. And for the first time in his life, Rylan felt safe. A sudden alarm blared somewhere deep in the station. Red lights flashed. The sensors of Zyra and the remnants of the station's automated systems screamed of intruders. Rylan's heart jumped. He looked up to see shadows moving at the far end of the corridor, rogue scavengers, likely drawn by the emergency signal. They're coming, Rylan whispered, feeling fear claw at him. His mind raced. He had survived storms, collapsed shelters, and starvation, but this was different. These were humans armed with blasters, unpredictable, dangerous. And Zyra, for all her size and strength, wasn't a fighter for him yet. She didn't know loyalty. Rylan's mind worked faster than his heart. Zyra, he said, voice low, urgent. We need to hide. Or we fight smart. Not just strong. He pointed to a service vent above, partially open. It could hold both him and her, maybe enough to stay unseen, maybe to outsmart the gang. The dragon mechanoid lowered her head, scanning the vent. Rylan noticed a flicker of agreement in her eyes, or at least acknowledgement of his plan. His pulse quickened. He had just made a decision no one his age had ever dared. He would lead a creature older than time itself into a fight of wit and survival. Movement in the corridor grew faster. Shadows stretched closer, blasters catching the light. Rylan grabbed a loose panel, testing its weight. It wasn't much, but if thrown at the right moment it could delay them, slow them down just enough. Stay close. Follow me exactly, he instructed Zyra, though he wasn't sure she understood the words fully. She huffed, and the air shimmered around her wings, a sign of energy charging. Whether for flight or defense he didn't know. As the first footsteps echoed beneath the crumbling walkway, Rylan took a deep breath. He had no armor, no adult to guide him, no reinforcements. Just his courage, his mind, and the creature beside him. The scavengers rounded the corner. One stepped forward, weapon raised. Rylan's eyes met theirs, and something inside him hardened. He might be small, alone, and untrained, but humans had a stubbornness that refused to bow, even in the void. He signaled Zyra. She understood. With a roar of engines and a metallic screech, she lifted her wings. They launched into the vent together, escaping the immediate threat, but leaving the shadows of the station behind them. And deep in the twisting corridors of Nix 7, a boy and a dragon mechanoid had just begun a partnership that could challenge anything the universe dared throw at them. The scavengers cursed, scanning empty hallways. But Rylan and Zyra were gone, vanished into the unknown. Yet the danger was not gone, only delayed. Somewhere ahead, greater threats waited. And Rylan knew that survival here required more than courage. It required every ounce of human intelligence and daring he could summon. He gripped Zyra's claw tighter, and with a whispered promise to himself he said, "We're going to make it, together." Rylan and Zyra crawled through the narrow service vent, the metal walls vibrating with the distant echoes of scavenger boots. The air was hot, thick with dust and the hum of old power conduits. Rylan's hands ached from gripping the edges, but he didn't slow. Each second counted. Every heartbeat was a calculation of life or death. He peeked through a vent grate, seeing the gang spread out below. They were armed with ion blasters, scavenged rifles, and a fierce hunger for anything that moved. If they spotted him or Zyra, there would be no mercy. He shivered, not from cold but from the weight of responsibility. One misstep and the orphan boy, the dragon mechanoid, and the fragile remains of the station could all be destroyed. "Listen," he whispered, drawing a quick diagram in the dust on the vent wall. "They're following the sound. If we create a diversion, we can force them into the south corridors. That area is unstable. Old structural vents, barely holding together. I can use it to trap them temporarily." His small hands moved fast, sketching lines and angles. Zyra lowered her head, eyes glowing faintly as if she understood the plan. Not entirely, but enough to trust him. Rylan climbed higher in the vent, finding a loose power panel dangling above the gang's path. If he timed it right, he could short-circuit it, sending sparks and smoke down to block their vision. He clenched his jaw. This was dangerous. He wasn't sure the panel could hold his weight, let alone deliver the effect he needed, but he had no choice. Courage wasn't about certainty, it was about acting even when everything told you not to. "Zyra, wait for my signal," he instructed. She exhaled a soft metallic hiss, the equivalent of a nod. Then he dropped the panel and sparks erupted, sending the scavengers diving for cover. Smoke filled the corridor. The ion blasters fired blindly, cutting through metal, missing him by inches. The boy ducked, lungs tight, heart hammering. Now was the moment. He leaped out of the vent, landing on a walkway above the chaos. Zyra followed, wings unfolding in the cramped corridor, scraping edges with a metallic screech. She was larger than any human could have hoped to control, but somehow she trusted him, and he trusted her in return. Rylan ran toward the unstable south corridors, Zyra covering his back. The gang tried to follow, but the floor buckled under weight and age. Dust and debris cascaded into the void beneath. Rylan's mind raced. One mistake here, one wrong step, and the entire structure could collapse, taking everyone with it. Yet, his human intuition, honed by years of scavenging and fighting impossible odds, guided him. A scavenger raised a blaster, aiming for him. Rylan grabbed a loose conduit pipe and flung it with precise force, striking the weapon and sending it spinning across the corridor. He barely had time to duck as sparks flew. The human element, his courage, cleverness, and split-second decision-making, made the impossible real. Zyra roared, echoing through the corridors, not in blind fury but as a coordinated strike. Her claws and wings forced the gang into a bottleneck. Rylan used the moment to guide her movements, pointing, directing, predicting. The boy's intelligence combined with the dragon mechanoid's power created a strategy no ordinary human, or gang, could anticipate. One by one the scavengers were trapped or retreating. Rylan led Zyra through the vents and crumbling walkways, always one step ahead. They moved faster than any enemy could follow, faster than panic could spread. Sweat ran down his face not just from exertion but from fear, adrenaline, and the impossible responsibility of keeping both himself and Zyra alive. Finally, they reached the edge of a shattered observation deck, overlooking the sprawling void of Nix 7. The station's lights flickered and groaned, casting long shadows. Below, the gang tried to regroup but their path back was blocked. The boy and the dragon mechanoid had outsmarted them without firing a single shot. Rylan leaned against Zyra's scaled shoulder, breathing hard. "We did it, for now," he whispered. He knew it wasn't over. Nix 7 was full of dangers worse than scavengers. Collapsing hulls, rogue AI security systems, radiation bursts, and the ever-present threat of the void itself. But for a brief moment they had survived together. Human courage and intelligence had turned the tide. Zyra lowered her massive head, sensors scanning the station's corridors. Rylan noticed a faint glow in her eyes, something almost like pride. He smiled weakly, feeling a spark of hope for the first time in months. He wasn't alone. He had a partner, a guardian, a friend. But the relief was short-lived. From the corner of his eye, he noticed movement in the debris-strewn corridor ahead. Not scavengers. Something else. A flicker of light, too regular, too sharp, almost like the pulse of a machine, or a signal. His stomach tightened. Whatever it was coming straight for them. "Zyra, we might not be alone," he muttered, his voice tense. The mechanoid's wings twitched, alert and ready. Ryland's mind raced. He had just outsmarted the gang, but now the unknown loomed. Whatever waited ahead could be smarter, faster, and far deadlier than anything he had faced so far. He swallowed hard and straightened, gripping her claw tightly. "We face it together. No running. No hiding. We survive." The pulse of light grew closer, filling the corridor with a cold, eerie glow. Shadows stretched and twisted around them. Ryland felt a thrill of fear, but also a surge of determination. Humans survived against impossible odds because we refused to quit, refused to accept limits. And whatever waited ahead, he knew, would learn the same lesson. The boy and the dragon mechanoid stepped forward into the unknown, ready for whatever Nyx 7 would throw at them next. Ryland and Zyra moved cautiously through the station's corridors, alert to every sound. The eerie glow from the unknown pulse faded behind them, but the sense of danger lingered like smoke in the air. Ryland knew it wasn't over. Nyx 7 had a way of testing those who dared survive, pushing humans to the edge to see what they were made of. He paused by a cracked viewport, peering out into the asteroid belt. Among the floating debris he spotted a faint signal, flashing red and blue. His heart skipped. "That's a distress beacon," he whispered. Zyra tilted her massive head, sensors tracking the source. It came from a drifting colony ship, far outside the main station's orbit. Humans trapped. Possibly dying. Ryland clenched his fists. "We have to help them," he said. He knew it would be dangerous. The colony had been abandoned years ago after a wormhole collapsed nearby. Entering it meant navigating unstable space, debris fields, and failing life support systems. Most humans would have run away. But humans were stubborn. They fought when there was no chance, and Ryland had inherited that stubbornness. He raced back to a control hub, fingers flying over broken consoles. "Zyra, I can reroute the old navigation systems. I'll calculate the wormhole's pulse windows, maybe just enough to slip through." His voice was tense but precise. The boy's mind moved faster than fear, faster than the creeping anxiety in his chest. Courage wasn't about not feeling fear, it was about acting despite it. Zyra hummed softly, scanning the consoles. Sparks flew as he patched circuits together. He worked quickly, cross-referencing decayed star charts with outdated orbital simulations. Every calculation mattered. A single misstep could tear them apart in the vacuum of space. Ryland's fingers were raw and bleeding from the worn buttons and sharp edges, but he ignored it. The humans trapped out there didn't have time to wait for him to rest. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Ryland's calculations were ready. "Zyra, listen. The wormhole isn't stable. It opens for exactly 0.7 seconds every 30 seconds. We have to synchronize the ship's hull with the resonance pulse. One misalignment and..." He didn't finish the sentence. Death waited in the void, sharp and silent. Zyra lowered her head, sensors flicking with understanding. Not comprehension of the physics but a trust in him. That trust alone was enough. Ryland had a partner, a being far stronger than any human, and together they could attempt the impossible. They exited the station in Zyra's wingspan, soaring past jagged asteroids. The vacuum of space stretched endlessly around them, stars glinting like distant promises. The drifting colony grew closer, battered, twisting on its damaged thrusters. Its hull had been breached in several places, life support systems failing. He could see movement through the cracked viewports, pale figures, weak, waving frantically at the approaching rescue. The wormhole's pulse grew visible as a shimmering distortion in space, collapsing and reforming like water caught in a storm. Ryland's breath caught. "Now, Zyra. We go through when it stabilizes. We slip through the window, not a second late." He gritted his teeth, muscles tense. Time slowed. The pulse reached its peak. Ryland fired thrusters to match Zyra's angle. Her wings glowed with concentrated energy, shielding them from stray debris. The hull of the drifting colony loomed ahead, jagged edges slicing through space like knives. Then the impossible happened. The wormhole's pulse shimmered, twisting violently. Ryland's calculations hung in the balance. One miscalculation, one wrong move, and the ship and the colony would be torn apart. he adjusted, eyes locked on his diagrams, mind racing faster than thought itself. Humans survived impossible odds because they refused to accept impossibility. Hold steady, he muttered. Zyra's sensors flared as they matched resonance. Space itself seemed to resist them, stretching metal and light. Then, in a blinding pulse of energy, they slipped through. The wormhole's collapse snapped behind them with a roar of cosmic fury. They emerged near the colony, battered but intact. Ryland's knees went weak with relief. He clutched Zyra's claw, feeling warmth against his skin. They had made it. But there was no time to celebrate. The colony's hull was failing and the people inside were barely conscious. Life support was fading. He scanned quickly, devising a plan. Zyra, we need to stabilize the hull. I can reroute power from your wings to the main systems temporarily. It's risky. You might overheat. She exhaled softly, agreeing. Ryland scrambled over to the access ports, reconnecting wires, directing energy from her core. Sparks flew and the colony shuddered under the strain, but systems hummed back to life, air filtering through the corridors. The survivors, thin and weak, stared at him in disbelief. They had expected no one, especially not a boy. Ryland felt his chest tighten with emotion, knowing that human courage, determination, and ingenuity had saved them. He looked up at Zyra, whose massive form shielded them from the drifting debris outside. Together they had achieved the impossible. But as relief settled in, Ryland noticed something moving in the distance. Small lights, faster than debris, heading toward the colony. Not humans. Something else. Machines. Autonomous drones. Hunting. He straightened, feeling that familiar surge of determination. The rescue was only the beginning. Nyx 7 had more tests waiting, and he would have to outsmart them all. Zyra, he whispered, gripping her claw, we're not done yet. Whatever comes next, we survive. Together. And in the void of space, under shattered stars, a boy and a dragon mechanoid prepared for the next impossible challenge. The colony's corridors echoed with weak, ragged breathing. Survivors staggered, pale and trembling, their eyes wide as they saw Ryland and Zyra. He ignored the gratitude for now, the danger had not passed. He knew instinctively that Nyx 7 was far from done testing him. The faint lights approaching the colony were too deliberate, too synchronized to be random debris. Autonomous drones, scavenger-built hunting machines, were closing in. Ryland crouched beside a broken console, scanning layouts and emergency schematics. The colony was old, designed for humans who were supposed to maintain it regularly. Now it was a crumbling skeleton floating in the void. Every corridor could collapse under weight, every system could fail at the wrong moment. But human ingenuity had a way of turning weakness into strength. We have to defend the colony, he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Not with weapons, but with brains. We can't outgun them. We have to outsmart them. Zyra tilted her massive head, sensors glowing in agreement. The mechanoid was large, strong, and powerful, but Ryland knew brute force alone wouldn't win this fight. Humans survived by seeing the impossible from angles no machine considered. He moved quickly, rerouting Zyra's internal energy systems to project a temporary shield over the central hub. Sparks arced as she hummed, generating a protective barrier that flickered in the dim corridor lights. Ryland calculated the shield's maximum duration, timing it to hold long enough for the next stage of his plan. Zyra, follow me, he said, sprinting toward the main entrance of the colony. His feet pounded against warped metal floors. The drone's lights reflected off the walls behind them, moving faster than shadows. He knew their sensors were sophisticated, able to track heat signatures, motion, and energy pulses. But humans had unpredictability. That was their edge. He grabbed control panels scattered across the hub, redirecting power to old colony drones. They were simple, clunky machines, but Ryland knew their weaknesses and strengths. He programmed them to create phantom life signatures throughout the corridors, luring the attacking drones away from the central survivors. Each drone projected fake heat and motion readings, fooling the autonomous attackers into chasing ghosts. The first wave of drones burst into the central corridor. Blasters fired, sparks flew, and alarms screamed. Zyra swooped above, deflecting rounds with her reinforced wings, her movements precise, guided by Ryland's commands. The boy darted through the chaos, adjusting drone programming on the fly, predicting the drone's calculations before they even processed his actions. A drone lunged toward the central hub, its claws tearing metal walls. Ryland grabbed a loose conduit and swung it with exact timing, hitting the drone's sensor array. It spun into the wall, disabled. Zyra's massive tail swept another one off its path, slamming it against a bulkhead. Humans and machine working in tandem, brains and power fused into one unstoppable force. Survivors clung to corners, watching as a boy orchestrated the defense with calm, deliberate precision. Each command he gave was a calculated risk, a chance to turn a deadly situation into a victory. One wrong move and they would all perish. But Rylan moved with the certainty of a human who refused to accept impossibility. The drones regrouped, adapting to the decoys, their targeting systems refining. Rylan's heart pounded. He had seconds to act. He raced to the control hub and opened the main airlock's emergency override. By flooding the adjacent corridor with pressurized plasma from old containment fields, he created a wall of fire and force. The drones were thrown back, some disabled, some retreating, their programming unable to cope with the sudden human unpredictability. Zyra roared, echoing through the corridors as she blocked the final wave, letting Rylan move the survivors into the central hub. He grabbed the youngest child, holding her tightly as they passed under Zyra's protective wings. The boy, once homeless, now a hero, guided terrified humans to safety. Every step, every choice displayed courage no weapon could replace. When the final drone collapsed, sparks flying, silence settled over the central hub. Rylan fell to his knees, chest heaving, sweat streaking his dirt-smudged face. Zyra lowered her massive head, sensors dimming slightly in what seemed like satisfaction. The humans stared at him, disbelief etched into every line of their faces. He was 16. Alone. An orphan. Yet he had saved them all. Rylan finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. He had done more than survive. He had protected lives against overwhelming odds, outsmarted machines designed to kill, and led a mechanoid far stronger than himself into battle with nothing but intellect, courage, and determination. Humanity had proven itself again. Small, fragile, but unstoppable when it refused to yield. But relief didn't last. Rylan's eyes caught a flicker in the corner, a signal faster than anything he had seen. More drones? Another threat? The void of Nix 7 was unforgiving, and he knew that their battle was only the beginning. Survival demanded constant vigilance, relentless thinking, and unyielding courage. He stood, gripping Zyra's claw tightly. "We did it," he whispered, voice trembling with exhaustion and pride. "But whatever comes next, we face it. Together." Zyra exhaled, a soft metallic hiss that felt almost like agreement, a promise forged in the fires of combat. Rylan looked at the survivors, their fears slowly replaced by hope. He realized then that courage was contagious. One human could inspire many. One act of ingenuity could save countless lives. And a bond forged in impossible circumstances, like his with Zyra, could become stronger than steel, more enduring than fear itself. He knew this was just the beginning. Nix 7 still held mysteries, dangers, and tests. But the boy who had once been homeless, who had walked the edge of the void alone, had proven one undeniable truth. Humans could face anything, think faster than machines, and fight with a determination that nothing could crush. The lights of the colony flickered, stabilized for the first time in months. And beyond the reinforced windows, the void of space stretched endlessly, full of dangers yet to be discovered. Rylan gritted his teeth, shoulders tense, ready. "Let's see what comes next," he said. Zyra's wings shimmered, and together, human and dragon mechanoid, they prepared to face the next impossible challenge. The survivors huddled in the central hub of the drifting colony, faces pale but alive. Their breaths came in shaky gasps, but no one was dead. Rylan sank to the floor for a moment, chest heaving, sweat streaking his dirt-smeared face. For a boy who had nothing, who had been homeless and motherless, this moment was unimaginable. He had just faced the void and emerged victorious, not with weapons but with courage, intellect, and determination. Zyra shifted beside him, her massive frame looming, yet somehow protective. Her glowing eyes scanned the corridors, sensors detecting no immediate threats. She lowered her head, letting Rylan grip her claw tightly. He had never felt a bond like this before, and somehow he knew she hadn't either. Their trust had been forged in fire, danger, and survival. The survivors began to stir, their fear gradually giving way to hope. One by one they came forward, hesitant, trembling, eyes wide as they looked at the boy who had saved them. No adult had led them, no experienced commander had devised the defense. Just Rylan, a human, and his ingenuity. A 16-year-old boy, armed with nothing but courage and intelligence, had turned despair into survival. A woman stepped forward, her hands shaking. You saved us. All of us," she said, voice choked with emotion. Rylan shook his head, refusing praise. Survival wasn't about glory. It was about action. It was about doing what had to be done no matter the cost. They didn't survive because of luck, he said softly, eyes meeting hers. They survive because humans don't give up. We fight, we think, we find a way even when everything says we can't. That's what matters. His words hung in the corridor, simple but powerful. The survivors nodded, understanding more than he could say. Outside, Zyra extended her wings, the glow of her energy shielding casting soft light across the broken walls. The stars of Nyx 7 twinkled in the distance, distant suns shining over jagged asteroid belts. Rylan looked at the void and felt a surge of awe. For a moment, the vast emptiness felt smaller. Humans were small, yes, but in moments like this they could face impossibility and bend it to their will. He helped the child climb onto a reinforced panel, steadying her hands. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, fragile but alive, and whispered, "Thank you, for not giving up." Rylan's chest tightened. He remembered the nights when he had nothing, when every day had been a fight just to survive. Now he had given hope to others. Humans could create miracles, even from the edge of despair. But hope came with responsibility. The drifting colony was still damaged, systems barely holding, and Nyx 7 offered no mercy for the unprepared. Rylan knew that surviving once wasn't enough. Humans survived by adapting, by preparing for the next challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. He turned to Zyra, who regarded him with her glowing eyes, massive claws resting on the floor beside him. "We can't stay here," he said. "The station, the drones, the storms, they'll come again. We need a real home somewhere safe. Somewhere humans can survive and thrive." Zyra exhaled, the hum vibrating through the floor, as if acknowledging the truth in his words. Together they were more than boy and machine, they were guardians, a force that could protect, teach, and endure. Rylan moved through the corridors, checking the survivors, making quick repairs, rerouting energy from Zyra to stabilize life support systems. His mind worked faster than exhaustion, faster than fear. Every connection he made, every choice was precise. Humans survived by thinking ahead, anticipating the impossible, and acting with courage when others hesitated. As systems hummed steadily, the survivors gathered in the central hub. They looked at Rylan and Zyra, understanding that their survival wasn't a miracle. It was human determination, intelligence, and courage. One by one they began to rebuild, guided by the boy who had led them through the void. Rylan climbed onto a reinforced panel, looking out a viewport toward the asteroid field. The stars shimmered in silence, the distant ruins of Nyx 7 reminding him that the universe was indifferent, but humans were not. Humans fought. Humans survived. Humans overcame. And together with Zyra, he knew they could face whatever came next. He glanced at Zyra, the dragon mechanoid who had once been feared as a weapon. She lowered her head, letting him touch her claw. A bond had formed, stronger than metal, deeper than fear. She had chosen to stay not because she was commanded, but because she trusted him, because humans had shown her courage and ingenuity beyond any calculation. Rylan smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. He had found family where he thought none could exist. He had taken nothing and turned it into survival, hope, and trust. In the void of space, he had discovered that humans were unstoppable when they refused to quit. Beyond the viewport, the void stretched endlessly. Unknown dangers lurked among the asteroid belts, collapsing hulls and rogue drones. But Rylan's heart was steady. Humans had survived worse. They would survive this. And as he looked around at Zyra and the rescued humans, he whispered, "We're not just survivors. We're humans. And nothing will stop us." For the first time in months, Rylan felt safe. Not because the void was kind, but because humans had proven they could be stronger than the universe itself. And with Zyra by his side, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The stars of Nyx 7 twinkled overhead, indifferent to human struggles, but Rylan's courage shone brighter. One boy, one dragon mechanoid, and a colony saved by determination, intelligence, and heart. The void had tested them and humans had won. And for Rylan, the boy who had once been homeless and alone, the universe had finally given him a place to belong, and a story to inspire every human who dared to fight the impossible.